Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you all for being here. Today's a great day to be a Rice Owl. Sign days are always fun. We get to celebrate recruiting and this impressive 2022 early signing class. With this class, you're going to see size, athleticism, and bright, smart football players that I'm so excited to bring to you. I think that, I think there's a lot of hard work that goes into this, and I believe these new additions are exactly what we need moving forward to create an excellent future for this program. Alex Brown and his staff have done a great job in creating a signing class we can really be proud of. We've got the addition of 11 players to tell you about today, representing 6 different states. Texas, of course, the great high school football that's played in this state, California, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, and Louisiana. 8 of our signees are straight out of high school. And we have 1 from a junior college in California and 2 transfers from FBS programs. I think Rice is just such an amazing place to get a world-class degree. And it's such a privilege to be able to represent this football program and all of the great men who have chosen to join us. Academically, we ask a ton from our signees in order to be able to come to a great school like Rice. We want guys that want to be here, that are proud to play for Rice, and will represent us in the right way. Our football team got stronger today, and I always say recruiting takes a village. I'd like to thank everybody involved who played a hand in our recruiting process, and starting with our faculty and administration for having trust in our football program. We're thankful for the time they've spent and a true contribution to helping recruit these student athletes. That starts with our athletic director, Dr. Joe Carlgard, who allows us to go and recruit the way we need to, coast to coast, give them a first-class experience when they're here, and is doing everything he can to make life better for our student athletes every single day here. It's Rick Mello and Torian Houston who stay up countless nights doing everything from transcripts to helping us recruit to just helping every single way they can. And also Chuck Poole, who opened the call. It's always humbling to me when you walk in at 5-something in the morning and you've got your group already in there, the recruiting guys, some of your coaches, but Chuck Poole's in there, Torian Houston's in there with his computer open, and they're just ready for those first wave to roll in. And of course, there's donuts and coffee as well, but those guys just so selfless with their time and jumping in there. So can't say thank you enough to all of them. Alex Brown and his staff. We have a couple full-time recruiting assistants in Daniel Clements, who works with the offense, and Trey McGahee, who works for the defense. So thankful for all that they do. And that's so much behind the scenes work and so much tireless work of nowadays, not only going through the recruits that are ranked in high school and all the recruiting tape we get in from high school coaches, but the new era of the transfer portal and all the work that they put in. We've also got some great students, some full-time Rice students that help us out. That most of them have been gifted to us, if you will, by Tom Stallings and the #1 ranked sports management program in the nation here at Rice University. The first is Peter Chung, who is finishing up his 2nd year with us. He does such a great job connecting with our recruits. And when he gets on campus, he can talk about the campus life. We have a young lady who joined us this year, and Elena Schwagman, and she's finishing her 1st semester here at Rice. I think she's got a bright future in evaluating and recruiting. She connects with the recruits, and she's a tireless worker. And then we've got 2 young men who were part of our team. And then when their football time ended, they transitioned right into the recruiting department. And that's Matt Sams and Cameron Valentine. Matt actually got to do an internship with the Pittsburgh Steelers last summer, came back, talked to Alex Brown and some of our staff about some things they did in evaluation, and has jumped right in. And Cam Valentine was just a superstar this past weekend on our official visits and telling people what it's like to be a part of this program and really making recruits and their parents comfortable. Also want to thank my staff for putting in a tremendous amount of work and travel to make sure we're bringing in the right fits for our program, because that is so important. And in addition to the full-time coaches that were on the road, they're awesome wives who become single parents during this time of year. Jerry Pickle and Sydney Davis did a fabulous job kind of keeping the boat afloat as I'm traveling all across the nation, and also in all that they do in a recruiting weekend. It's the way that they roll in operations, but it's selfless. They just make sure that nobody notices anything going on around them and things just seamlessly go. And between those two and Alex, our last recruiting weekend was spectacular. Roger Hayhurst and Ryan Hayworth for making ridiculous videos and setting up the best photo shoots in group of 5 period. There's nobody even close. The creativity that Roger has put forth to that and the way he makes it so fun for the recruits, it's just another great thing on the recruiting visit. And lastly, you know, well, not lastly, but just to talk about other people that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for these recruits, and I'm thankful for their parents for putting their trust in me and this coaching staff to help these men grow on and off the field and believing that we're going to give them back a better product than they gave us. And lastly, the straight line recruiting model, and for all of the awesome friends we have that are high school football coaches in this state and across America. Just couldn't do it without them. They mean everything to us. And the straight line recruiting model here in Texas is just one that should be studied by everybody. How recruiting still goes through the head coaches. And I believe that that's the way it should be. Talking about some superlatives in the 2 classes that were the 2 recruiting classes before I was hired here in 2016, Rice ranked 129th in the nation. In 2017, they ranked 122nd. In each successive year, we've been able to raise that bar in recruiting and go take a step forward. In 2018, we were 112 in FBS, and we got Blaze and a couple good contributors out of that class. In 2019, I think somebody's mic's on. Okay. In 2019, we ranked 111th in the country, and so took another step up there. And then as we went forward, 2020, we took another step forward, right? We ended up being, I think we broke the top 100 for the first time. We were 97th in the nation, including the highest rated recruit in Rice history and Gabe Taylor. And in 2021, you know, we took, again, another step. It was the first time we had a top 5 finish in Conference USA since 2013, and we were 94th in the nation. Had 2 guys that ranked in the top 20 all-time Rice recruits since they've been keeping track. And then this year, you got 9 commits. You got the smallest class in the history of 24/7 ratings for Rice. We're finishing 4th in the conference, or we're ranked 4th in the conference right now, which is the highest since 2007. We're 91st in the nation. And 7 of our 9 recruits were 3 stars, including, once again, 2 in the top 20 in Rice history. So that's back-to-back years that our recruiting department's been able to find 2. They weren't ranked nearly as high as that when we started recruiting them and started offering them. But as people started seeing their film, they really shot up the rankings. So it's really a credit to our recruiting department there. Now, the thing that doesn't include when you talk about that class of those 8 high school guys that is on the 24/7 rankings, it doesn't include 2 grad transfers or 2 transfers from FBS programs, as I mentioned earlier. Sam Crawford coming to us from Tulsa, who him and Tim Horn, a kicker from University of Washington, they are difference makers for our programs right now. And the running back we signed from the Junior College League in California, Dean Connors, we think he's going to be fabulous, and he's not included in those rankings either. So not all spots are filled. We're not done getting better, but what a great day today is. By far the smallest class we've had, and that was by design. So when Alex and I sat down and talked about what we wanted to do, we understood the confines that going back to 85 would mean with the COVID year for your own roster. And so what we said is, if we're going to offer somebody, we are going to shoot for the stars. And we ended up attaining some of those stars in the process. And so we went to an NFL draft model. We said we're going to view every player as a pick. And we honed in on our early offers. We had 36 offers and 9 high school commits. So we think that we're going to up our #1 hit rate in the country this year as well. Talking about other things that have to go on in college recruiting now, it is a different time than I've ever seen, I think than any of us have ever seen. So the first day of the contact period after we played our last game, we were in-house, and our coaches met with everybody on our team. I had a chance to sit down, and we recruited our own team first and foremost. Then we worked outside of the walls. So talking about retaining the people on our team, you know, we've got some guys that chose to come back and continue their time with our football team that were big pieces. Guys like Ari Broussard, Ikenna Enichukwu, Wiley Green, and some other seniors that will be key contributors as we go forward with our football team. Each year, we've seen the level of talent has been raised by quantity. At first, you saw how big our classes were in those first 2 when we had to get a lot of people in. We were trying to raise the floor as well as the ceiling in this program. And now we're really getting to the point where we're raising that ceiling. You see the quality and now high impact guys coming in year after year. So in summary, we signed great football players who are great fits for this football program and this awesome university. And now let me touch on them individually. So talking about the first recruit that we signed, we have DAVION Carter. He is a 6 foot, 301 pound defensive lineman from North Mesquite High School, coached by Tim Cedar at North Mesquite. Just an outstanding, explosive defensive lineman in the mode or the model of a BRAYLEN Carroll. And we are so excited to have DAVION join our football team. The next up is a big one, literally and figuratively, but Miguel Cedeno from American Heritage, where he played for Patrick Surtain in Florida, in Davie, Florida. He is 6'7", and he measured in at 335 pounds, weighed in at 335 pounds this past weekend. I know it says 315 on your sheet, but he's grown a little even since then, had an 82-inch wingspan. He knew a lot about Rice because his second cousin was a former offensive tackle here, Ian Gray, and who played here, I think his last year was 2014. So he knew a lot about Rice. His parents already had a house in Sugar Land. So it's just an awesome, it's really awesome how that thing came together for us. I mentioned Sam Crawford as a transfer from Tulsa. He's a grad transfer that's getting into the MBA program. He was enrolled in the MBA program at Tulsa also. In his career, 114 passes caught for 1,632 yards and 10 touchdowns. Started 27 games for the Golden Hurricanes. We have gotten a chance to really get to know this young man, and he is outstanding. And the production that he had in the American Conference will just really help us understand what that's going to look like as we go forward. So excited to have him join our program. I mentioned Dean Connors earlier. He's a running back, a 6 foot tall, 205 pound running back. Played at Riverside Community College this spring. Went in there and competed with the best. They had all the bounce backs, all the D1 bounce backs, and he didn't care. He said, I'm going to go to the best community college I can, go in there and compete. He ended up earning the starting job and led them to the state championship game that they played last Saturday. Next up is a safety, TYSON Flowers, 6 foot, 190 pounds. He played everything at Southwest Christian, two-way standout for his coach, Jeremy Flowers, who's also a former collegiate player at Arkansas and played in the NFL, and who happens to be his father. So he's a guy that has been coached the right way, I think, in this game, whether it was at the dinner table or in the meeting room. Our next signee is Quentin Jackson, 5'9", 170 pound athlete from North Crowley, two-time offensive MVP of District 3 6A for Coach Allen, and did an unbelievable job. And Coach Mack just did an unbelievable job at everything he did. He jumped in there and played quarterback this year because they needed him to. He rushed for over 1,100 yards, passed for over 1,600 yards, and accounted for 32 total touchdowns. So just a dynamic player with the ball in his hand. It was awesome to watch him play some of those guys on the I-20 corridor, Duncanville and DeSoto, and seeing what he was able to do in those games. Our next recruit is a 6'6", 190 pound receiver, Rawson McNeil from Marietta, Georgia. Went to George Walton. He's a 3-time All-Region selection. He is an outstanding football player, averaged 20.8 yards per catch. The thing I love about him is he uses his 6'6" frame. You see him go up on those 50-50 balls, as people talk about him when the ball's thrown down the field, and he makes them more like 90-10 balls. And that's what we need. We need somebody to go up and compete for the football in the air and come down with it. And he's the right guy for us. Next up, a local kid from just down the road in Cypress, went to Cy Ranch High School, and that is Chibi Nujuwaku. And he is a 6'2", 235 pound defensive end. We had him at like 242 pounds, but a guy that we've been on forever. I thought Alex and his team did a great job identifying him. We got him interested in staying home and understanding all the things that Rice University can do for him on and off the field. And I feel like we did a great job keeping Chibi in the boat. Next up is our quarterback, 6'3", 208 pounds, AJ Paget from Frisco Reedy. He kind of continues that Reedy pipeline that we have going with Isaiah Floyd and Bennett Meekum. Guy that played through injury this year and just meant the world to his team. He threw for almost 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns and 18 starts in his career, led him to the playoffs in both years. Just an outstanding football player, a tough kid, a throwback kid, and a guy we cannot wait to have on campus for his leadership ability. Next up, a wide receiver, a 5'11", 170-pound receiver, BRAYLEN Walker from Lake Charles College Prep. He's a guy that we saw at camps. We started seeing him at football camps here in Houston, at the Houston Baptist camp, and he just made play after play, and he would compete to get to the front of the line so he could run more reps. He had on purple shorts and a neon top, so you always knew when he was up. So then we had a chance to have him come to our camp and got watches on him, always had him below 4.5. And some people had some ridiculously fast times, but a guy who created separation, more than just his speed, he created separation and finished the catch. And so Alex and I talk about him, and we say, like, he did it the old fashioned way. He earned the offer by coming and impressing us in person. So I think that's a bright future for BRAYLEN. And one late addition that we just got approved is Tim Horn, that we talked about, from the University of Washington. He handled the kickoffs for him his first 2 years there. Was a highly ranked kicker coming out of high school. He's from Punahou High School in Hawaii, and the same high school as Kai Fairbear, and also a kicker that we had at Stanford, Jet Toner. So the place is just really promoted and trained unbelievable kickers during their time. And so we are so happy to have Tim Horn joining us, and he, along with Dean and Sam Crawford, will join us starting in January. Could still be a couple more additions between now and January that we're working through, but certainly will be more people added to this class as we go. But once again, in summary, a great group of Owls that we are thrilled to death to have joining our football team. With that, I'll open up for any questions. Well, I must have covered it pretty good.
Hey, Mike. Congrats on the class. You did your homework on the growth and the rankings over time. How impressive was it from your standpoint that you were able to get a top 5 class, only signing 9 kids? It's not a lot.
It's not, but again, it's what we knew, Matt, going into this year, right? It's the way the world was going to work, because everybody got another year of eligibility. So you almost had to kick an underclassman that could have come back out of your program to bring in a high school guy. And that's hard to do when you've invested resources and trained with Coach Hans and these coaches for so long. So we knew there were going to be small classes kind of nationwide, and we took advantage of that. So we had originally talked about this class. At one time, we were like, gosh, we may sign 5 guys. And then we said, no, it's going to be more like 10, 11. And that's kind of where we're settling in. Now, there will be a couple more ads as we go. But yeah, because of that, because of our knowledge of that situation, Matt, I was just so pleased with the way Alex and his team attacked this thing, and just, hey, man, these are the right ones for us. And we saw guys that we probably would have offered in other years, and we just said, no, let's wait. Let's see what we can get done with these guys. And that was obviously the right play.
And then you contrast that with 2 of the programs ranked above you, both had 20 commit classes. So on a per player basis, is this kind of, would you say this is along the lines of the best class that you've had at Rice?
Yeah, I would say that's it's an exceptional group of young men. I would say that. I'd say we're trying to take a step forward every year. It's what we always do. Whenever somebody we love and care about graduates or leaves the program, we want to replace them with somebody better. And that's our job. So I'm very, very happy with this class. And I think for these 9 guys, they're the right 9 guys for us.
And then I know you go in, when you draw up that game plan a year plus ago, you have a list of kind of what gaps you need to fill with the guys coming in. What were kind of the gaps that you identified, the areas you needed to improve from maybe a position fit? And how do you think you guys did on addressing those?
Yeah, I think positionally there was one that was glaring, right? We had to improve the kicker spot. That was something that we know could have changed the outcomes of games as we looked at it. And we wanted to go find the best one out there, and we feel like we did. We are thrilled that Tim is joining us. And then from another standpoint, when you look at the rest of it, it was just like, hey, how do we raise the ceiling? You know where the numbers are, you know where you got to put somebody in. Now let's go get the best one for us. And then, we always feel the need to increase the talent at receiver. And so when we had a shot at Sam, he got in the portal, we got a chance to talk to him, and it was perfect because he had already identified, like, I want to be back in Texas. He's from Rockwall High School, just east of Dallas. He's like, I want to be somewhere closer to my family. And he's got a ton of extended family in Houston. And he's like, I want someplace with a great MBA. It's like, hey, we're right here. And so it worked out the way it should.
And then as you kind of built the program with all those high school additions, how interesting has it been for you as you've kind of learned the rhythms of the transfer portal into making sure that you didn't have, a whole class filled out by late November for those kids that might come along December? You added Luke last year in June. What went into making those decisions of what you want the right guys, but how did you kind of settle on the right number?
Yeah, that was a conscious decision to make sure that we had some available, obviously. But it's a tough decision too, right? When you're, again, talking about moving on from a player that's been in your program to create that room. It's hard. It's really hard. But, some of them were ready to get on with their life's work anyway. So it worked itself out to make sure we had those numbers. But it was conscious to make sure we had at least a couple spots. It was things Alex and I had talked about multiple times. But the thing that I'd be lying if I could tell you, like, we figured out completely the ebb and flow of the transfer portal and the numbers. Like, I feel like every week Alex and I talked, it was like, okay, so it's going to be this way. No, it's going to be this way. So there was constant fluctuation as the year went on. But I am glad we ended up where we did.
How much room do you think you have left with, I guess, National Signing Day still technically 2 months away?
Yeah, you and I know that technically is asterisk, because today is signing day. And that's the unfortunate thing for so many guys in the portal and so many high school guys that didn't sign somewhere today is I'm afraid we're going to look up tomorrow and there's going to be like 7 scholarships left in America or something. But there's not going to be many, and there's not going to be a whole lot for us either. But there are holes that we're going to continue to fill. There's some guys that we have identified. There's probably 3 guys that we're seriously in conversations right now with that could commit as early as today. And obviously it's on their timeline. I think the thing that we learned is as fast as the portal happens for all of us and getting people in school and getting them a chance to visit, I think these players are realizing how fast it happens for them too. They put their name in the portal after their last game and they're worried about finals and they're worried about exams and they don't go anywhere the first weekend. They could trip somewhere. And then they got 14 places. I can't tell you the number of transfers we talked to last week that were spending one day at like 3 or 4 different places, checking out campuses, like one place on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And the reality is they get really rushed because they certainly don't get a chance to see all the places they would want. And they only get kind of a fraction of a visit at the place that they choose to go to. So in talking to some of those guys, they're like, yeah, coach, it happened extremely fast. I just had no idea. And I couldn't go anywhere this day because I had a final. And so again, I don't know necessarily the solutions with the portal in the month of December and the timetable, but I do see some of the problems.
And then you talked about when you were hired that it was going to take an overhaul on this roster, just to have enough guys to do a spring practice and then to get the talent to where you could compete. When you would have sat down, 4 or 5 years ago to where you are now, how does the roster look compared to your kind of expectations, and how close are you to being where you want to be to have that full 100 plus?
Yeah, I think we've made the strides we could make year in and year out. I'm really proud of and the guys that have stayed in our program and have stayed through some times that were not a lot of fun, whether it's coaches or players. I'm proud that they've chosen to stay, and I'm proud that they want to see this thing through because that means everything to me. That's what I want to do. I want to get to the other side of this thing and get us in a bowl game. So I think we've really done a great job assessing the roster. Now the hard cap of 25 and the annual counter of 25 is a limiting factor, and it's something they're talking about changing. Obviously this year, I sure wish we would have had the rule in my first year where if you had guys enter the portal, which we had 6 that first year I was here that I didn't even get to meet with that entered the portal. And now you could sign up to 7 more if they entered the portal. So I think that's a good rule change. But those are things that didn't exist for us. So we had to do it through the restrictions NCAA places on you. And now we're getting this roster to a great place. And you and I have talked about this before. Like, we played that team in 2017 in Australia, and I knew exactly what the roster looked like. I knew what I thought of it. And we knew it was going to take a lot of work, and it has. But we're in a pretty good place right now. I'm really happy with this team.
Thanks, Mike. Congrats.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, of the freshmen that are coming in, is the plan to redshirt a majority of those, or is it or is it, or when they come on campus, you start practicing, you make the decision then?
Yeah, Richard, that's always been my philosophy. I tell these guys in our first meeting on campus, don't redshirt yourself. Just come in here and give us everything you got, compete your brains out, and we'll tell you where we see you. Okay, see what kind of trust you can earn and make your coaches play you. And then we'll have the conversation about redshirting or not. And the nice thing is, with the rule of the NCAA giving you 4 games before it counts as your year, gosh, every one of them should be trying to start on a special team or find their way in the 2 deep on that first game that we get to play in Los Angeles against USC next year. So that's again, I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to push them, and Coach Hans Straub will do the same all summer.
Coach, were you in on most of these players that you signed, or was there any of them that, like, in the last day or two came over to Rice?
No, not in the last day or two. Honestly, like things don't work that way at Rice. There's so much, like I mentioned, the process that we go through, Alex goes through with Rick Mello and Torian Houston and admissions. It's a great team effort, but it doesn't happen on a whim. It just can't. So we can't really like find somebody yesterday and sign them today. Now, I will tell you that we spent a large part of yesterday afternoon watching what seemed like hundreds of prospects and just making sure we have our board aligned for that February signing day, and know who we want to trip, who's supposedly visiting this place when, and just trying to get our ducks in a row for the next recruiting period, if you will, which again is, I think, going to be a lot more transfer oriented for the Rice Owls than it will be high school oriented. Sorry,
Any other
Richard.
questions? Any other questions for anybody?
Yeah. I got one final
Go ahead,
question.
Richard.
Yeah.
ahead.
One, Coach, did you find that the fact that you guys are changing conferences, did that help at all for this class as far as the
It
quality?
did. I think it did. I think it absolutely helped. Most of these guys were committed before that announcement happened, but I can't tell you how many of them text us and was like, "Holy cow, Coach, that's awesome!" And certainly the access to recruits that have multiple years left in the transfer portal. Those kids were extremely excited about the new conference, and it's not to poo-poo Conference USA. It's just the excitement of the American, the exposure of the American, having 40 games a year that are linear, that are going to be on ESPN within that conference. Those are big deals. So that's all stuff we're selling in people's homes. And I think where it will help us is as we start to make these offers that we did yesterday, or continue to make these offers that we did yesterday in the 23 class, and their ability to come in and see the future plans for Rice football, whether it's something about upgrading the stadium, whether it's the things that we're doing for the players within this building, and the things that we're going to be able to do more of.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mike, one more. I did want to ask you about the Twitter Spaces session that you jumped on this morning. I know traditionally this is the first time we get to hear you talk about the recruits, but can you kind of talk through how that came together and what it was like getting to basically, interview some of your new guys for the world to see?
Yeah. So back in like 2015, Nicole Auerbach wrote an article about how I was the techiest coach in the nation, right? Like I was offensive coordinator. I had a robot that would go sit with my family at dinner. I'm that nerd, right? So I'm always trying to be cutting edge. I'm always trying to do those things. And then you bring in Roger and you bring in Alex Brown, who have unbelievable ideas and creativity, and they're always trying to be next level type stuff. And it was a conversation. Alex brought it up. He's like, "Coach, this is what I'm thinking." And I heard him talk through it, and I was a little nervous about it. But I knew somebody was going to do it today, and it may as well be the Rice Owls. So I thought Alex did a great job with that. And again, I'm glad we did it. I hope you didn't mind being on here for a little bit of redundancy, but I thought it was really cool. And I love how many people came on and listened to that thing.